the Gallery of Deception, the anniversary surprise. Welcome to my channel, Twisted Heartstrings. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. The morning light filtered through our bedroom window, casting soft shadows across the hardwood floor. I woke up alone, which wasn't unusual. Marcus often rose early to work in his studio, claiming the dawn hours brought him the most inspiration. 15 years of marriage had taught me to appreciate his artistic temperament, or at least that's what I told myself. Today marked our 15th wedding anniversary. I smiled, thinking about the quiet dinner reservation I'd made at the Italian restaurant where Marcus had proposed all those years ago. He'd been a struggling artist then, painting in a tiny apartment with dreams bigger than his bank account. I'd believed in him, supported him through every rejection and setback. Now he was Marcus Castellano, the celebrated contemporary artist whose work sold for six figures. I stretched and reached for my phone on the nightstand, expecting to find a sweet message from my husband. Instead, there was nothing. My smile faded slightly, but I pushed away the disappointment. Marcus was probably planning a surprise. He always did love grand gestures. After showering and dressing, I made my way downstairs to find a note on the kitchen counter in Marcus's flowing handwriting. My darling Elena, tonight will be a night you'll never forget. Meet me at the Hartwell Gallery at 8 p.m. We're something beautiful. All my love, M. My heart lifted. The Hartwell Gallery was one of the most prestigious spaces in the city. Whatever Marcus had planned, it would be spectacular. The discovery in the studio. With hours before the evening's event, I decided to tidy up Marcus's studio, something I rarely did. He was particular about his creative space, but I thought a clean workspace might be a nice gift. Besides, he was out meeting with his dealer, or so his calendar had said. The studio was located on the third floor of our brownstone, a sun-drenched room filled with canvases, paint tubes, and the lingering smell of turpentine. I started organizing the scattered brushes and collecting empty coffee cups when I noticed Marcus's jacket draped over a chair. I picked it up to hang it properly and heard something thud against the floor. A phone, but not Marcus's usual phone. This one was smaller, older, with a plain black case. My hands trembled slightly as I picked it up. The screen lit up without requiring a passcode. My stomach twisted. The messages were all from someone saved as V. I scrolled through them, my breath catching with each line. Can't wait to see you tonight. Everything is ready. This will change everything for us, my love. After tonight, we can finally be together the way we've always wanted. The messages went back months. Months of secret conversations, planning, expressions of love that should have been meant for me. I sank into Marcus's painting chair, the phone clutched in my shaking hands. The questions multiplied. I sat there for what felt like hours, but was probably only 20 minutes. My mind raced through every possibility. Who was V? How long had this been going on? Was tonight's gallery event actually about us, or was it about them? I thought about confronting Marcus immediately, but something stopped me. Maybe it was pride, or maybe it was the need to understand the full picture before acting. I'd always been methodical, careful. It's what made me good at my job as an art restorer. I examined details that others missed, patient and thorough. I took photos of the most damning messages with my own phone, then carefully placed the secret phone back exactly where it had fallen. If Marcus was planning something tonight, I wanted to see it unfold. I wanted to understand the complete betrayal before deciding how to respond. Preparing for the unknown. I spent the afternoon in a daze, going through the motions of preparing for the evening. I chose a deep emerald dress that Marcus had always loved, styled my dark hair in soft waves, and applied makeup with steady hands despite the storm raging inside me. As I looked at myself in the mirror, I barely recognized the woman staring back. 15 years I'd given to this marriage. 15 years of supporting his dreams, managing our home, being the perfect artist's wife at countless gallery openings and dinner parties. And this was how he repaid me? The anger came in waves, hot and fierce, followed by crushing sadness. But underneath it all was something else. Determination. If Marcus thought he could humiliate me, he was wrong. If he thought I was the same trusting girl he'd married, he would soon learn otherwise. Arriving at the Hartwell Gallery. The Hartwell Gallery stood like a modern temple to art, all glass and clean white lines, on the corner of Madison and 73rd. As my taxi pulled up, I saw the crowd already gathering inside. The gallery glowed from within, and I could see champagne glasses catching the light, well-dressed people mingling. I paid the driver and stepped out onto the sidewalk. For a moment, I considered turning around, going home, avoiding whatever painful scene was about to unfold. But I'd never been a coward. I smoothed down my dress, lifted my chin, and walked toward the entrance. The gallery director, Simone Hartwell, greeted me at the door with air kisses. "Elena, you look absolutely stunning. Marcus has outdone himself this time. Wait until you see." Her enthusiasm felt like needles against my skin. I smiled automatically, the expression I'd perfected over years of playing the supportive wife. "I can't wait." Inside, the gallery was packed. I recognized faces from the art world: critics, collectors, other artists, socialites who collected art like they collected designer handbags. Everyone seemed excited, buzzing with anticipation. And then I saw the paintings, the hidden messages. They lined the gallery walls, each one illuminated by perfect gallery lighting. At first glance, they were beautiful, abstract compositions with bold colors and dynamic movement. But as I looked closer, I began to see something else. Each painting contained hidden elements. In one, buried within swirls of crimson and gold, I could make out the letters that spelled Victoria. In another, there were two figures embracing, barely visible unless you knew to look for them. A third showed a doorway opening onto a bright horizon, and in the corner, almost invisible, were two sets of initials intertwined: M and V. My breath came faster. This entire exhibition was a love letter. Not to me, but to her. To Victoria. To V. I moved through the gallery in a trance, seeing Marcus's betrayal painted across canvas after canvas. How had no one else noticed? Or perhaps they had, and I was the only fool who hadn't known what to look for until now. Meeting Victoria. Beautiful, aren't they? A woman's voice beside me made me turn. She was tall and elegant, with sleek blonde hair and sharp features. She wore a black dress that probably cost more than my car, and held a champagne glass with the casual confidence of someone who belonged in spaces like this. "They are," I managed to say. "Do you know the artist?" Her smile was brilliant and cold. "Intimately. I'm Victoria Ashford, Marcus's dealer. And you must be Elena. I've heard so much about you." There she was. V. The woman who had been receiving my husband's secret messages. The woman for whom he had created this entire exhibition. She stood before me, calm and poised, as if she had every right to be here, to be part of Marcus's life. I should have slapped her. I should have screamed. Instead, I found myself studying her the way I studied paintings in need of restoration, looking for the cracks beneath the surface. "It's nice to finally meet you," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "Marcus speaks highly of your business acumen." "Does he?" Her eyes flickered with something I couldn't quite read. "He's the talented one. I just helped the world see his genius." Before I could respond, I heard Marcus's voice from across the gallery. "Elena, there you are. The performance begins." My husband moved through the crowd toward me, handsome in his tailored suit, his dark hair artfully tousled. He looked like the man I'd fallen in love with all those years ago, but now I saw him differently. Now I saw the lies beneath the charm. He reached me and kissed my cheek, his hand resting possessively on my waist. "What do you think, darling?" "Surprised?" "Completely," I said, and it wasn't a lie. "I wanted tonight to be special," he continued, addressing both Victoria and me. 15 years deserves something extraordinary." Victoria raised her glass. "To 15 years and to new beginnings." The toast felt like a slap. New beginnings. For them, she meant. After they got rid of me, the inconvenient wife who had outlived her usefulness. The evening continued in a blur. Marcus gave a speech thanking his supporters, his dealer, and the love of his life, which sent the crowd into appreciative applause. I stood beside him, smiling, while Victoria watched from the side with that knowing smile. But I was already planning. I was already thinking 3 steps ahead, the way I did when approaching a damaged masterpiece. You don't rush. You assess the damage carefully. You plan your restoration technique. And then you act with precision. The mysterious collector. As the event was winding down, a man approached me. He was older, perhaps in his late 50s, with silver hair and expensive but understated clothing. His eyes were intelligent and kind. "Mrs. Castellano," he said quietly, "forgive the intrusion, but I wonder if I might have a word with you. Privately." Something in his tone made me nod. We moved to a quieter corner of the gallery, away from the lingering guests. My name is Julian Foster, he said. I'm an art collector, among other things. I've been following your husband's work for some time now. It's nice to meet you, I said carefully. Are you interested in acquiring one of tonight's pieces? Actually, he said, his voice dropping lower, I'm more interested in offering you information. Information about your husband and Ms. Ashford that I think you'll find very valuable. My heart pounded. What kind of information? The kind that could help you understand what's really going on here. He handed me a business card. Call me tomorrow. I think we have much to discuss about the real masterpiece being created, and it's not hanging on these walls. Before I could ask more, Marcus appeared at my elbow. Making new friends, darling? Julian smiled smoothly. Just complimenting your wife on her grace. You're a lucky man, Mr. Castellano. Don't I know it? Marcus said, but his eyes followed Julian as he walked away. The night ended with me going through all the motions. Accepting congratulations. Smiling for photos. Pretending everything was perfect. But inside, I was already transforming. The betrayed wife was giving way to something else. Something harder. Something determined to uncover every lie and make sure that the person who ended up hurt wasn't me. As we drove home that night, Marcus reached over and squeezed my hand. Happy anniversary, Elena. Tonight was just the beginning. He had no idea how right he was. Tonight was indeed a beginning, but not the one he had planned. The game had started, and Marcus didn't even know he was playing. I woke up early the next morning, my mind already racing before my eyes opened. Marcus was still asleep beside me, one arm thrown across the pillow, his face peaceful in the morning light. Looking at him now, I felt nothing but cold determination. The man I'd loved was either gone or had never really existed at all. I slipped out of bed quietly and made my way downstairs to the kitchen. Julian Foster's business card sat in my purse like a secret weapon. I made coffee and stared at my phone, debating whether to call him immediately or wait. Patience had never been my strong suit, but I'd learned that rushing led to mistakes. At exactly 9 o'clock, I dialed the number. Mrs. Castellano. Julian answered on the first ring. I was hoping you'd call. You said you had information about my husband, I said, dispensing with pleasantries. I'm listening. Not over the phone. Can you meet me at the Metropolitan Museum in an hour? The European Paintings section. 4th floor. I agreed and hung up, my hands shaking slightly. This was really happening. I was about to learn the full truth about Marcus's betrayal. Meeting Julian Foster. The Metropolitan Museum was already filling with tourists when I arrived. I climbed the grand staircase to the 4th floor, my heels clicking against the marble. Julian was waiting in front of a Rembrandt, studying the painting with the focus of someone who truly understood art. Mrs. Castellano, he greeted me. Thank you for coming. Shall we walk? We moved through the galleries, speaking in low voices as other visitors passed by. I should start by explaining who I am, Julian said. I'm not just an art collector. I'm also a private investigator specializing in art fraud. I've been hired by several collectors who suspect they've purchased forgeries. My stomach dropped. Forgeries? Your husband's forgeries, to be precise. Julian stopped in front of a Vermeer. Beautiful, isn't it? The way light plays across the surface, the depth of color, the technical mastery. Now imagine someone could replicate that well enough to fool even experts. That's what your husband has been doing. I felt the floor tilt beneath me. Marcus creates original works. He's not a forger. Your husband is extremely talented, Julian said. Talented enough to paint in the style of masters. For the past 3 years, he's been creating fake paintings and selling them through Victoria Ashford's gallery as authentic works by established artists. They've made millions. The real betrayal revealed. We sat down on a bench in front of the paintings. My mind was reeling. An affair I could have understood in a twisted way. But this was so much worse. Victoria is his partner in the fraud? I asked. She authenticates the paintings, invents false provenances, and connects them with wealthy buyers who don't ask too many questions, Julian explained. But here's where it gets interesting. I don't think Victoria is your husband's lover. I think she's his accomplice and possibly his next victim. What do you mean? Julian pulled out a tablet and showed me a series of financial documents. Your husband has been moving money, large amounts, but not into accounts Victoria has access to. He's been draining their joint business accounts and transferring the funds to offshore accounts in his name only. I studied the documents, my art restoration training kicking in. I knew how to spot details that didn't match, inconsistencies that revealed the truth beneath the surface. And the truth here was clear. Marcus was planning to disappear with all the money, leaving Victoria to take the fall for the forgery operation. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "What do you want?" "I want justice for my clients who were defrauded," Julian said. "But I also think you deserve to know that your husband hasn't just been betraying you emotionally. He's been stealing from you financially. Those offshore accounts? They were funded partly with money from your joint savings, your inheritance, everything you brought to the marriage." Discovering the financial ruin. After leaving Julian, I went straight to our bank. My hands shook as I logged into our accounts on my phone in the taxi. Account after account showed devastating withdrawals. The savings we'd built together, nearly empty. The inheritance from my mother that was supposed to secure our retirement, gone. Even the account I thought was mine alone had been systematically drained. 15 years of my life. 15 years of supporting Marcus's career, managing our finances while he focused on his art. And he'd stolen it all. I felt sick. I told the taxi driver to stop and stumbled out onto the sidewalk, gasping for air. People passed by, going about their normal days, while my entire world collapsed around me. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. "Lunch today? Want to celebrate our anniversary properly." The casualness of it enraged me. He was texting me about lunch while he'd been systematically destroying my financial security, planning to abandon me with nothing while he and Victoria, or maybe just he, disappeared with millions. I texted back, "Can't today? Have errands to run." His response came immediately, "Miss you." Those two words, once so sweet, now felt like mockery. The plan takes shape. I spent the rest of the day in a cafe, laptop open, making lists and plans. If Marcus wanted to play games, I would play better. I had advantages he didn't know about. I had Julian's evidence. I had knowledge of the forgery operation. And I had something Marcus had always underestimated, my intelligence. As an art restorer, I understood paintings at a molecular level. I knew techniques, materials, aging processes. I could spot a forgery because I understood how authentic pieces were created and how they changed over time. If Marcus was creating fakes, I could prove it. But more than that, I understood something Marcus had forgotten. I knew him. I knew how he worked, how he thought, his patterns and processes. I'd watched him paint for 15 years. I knew his techniques, his shortcuts, his signature moves that he thought were invisible. I called Julian. "I want to help you build your case, but I need something in return." "Name it," he said. "I want Marcus to pay for what he's done. Not just to your clients, but to me. I want him exposed, ruined, and I want to be the one who brings him down." There was a pause. Then Julian said, "I think we can arrange that." Entering the studio at night. That night, after Marcus fell asleep, I crept up to his studio. I'd never invaded his workspace before, respecting his need for privacy and creative space. What a fool I'd been. I turned on a small lamp and began my investigation. I found the canvases first, hidden behind a false panel I discovered by accident. There were dozens of them, paintings in various stages of completion. Each one was clearly meant to mimic the style of famous artists. I recognized a fake Monet, a counterfeit Renoir, an imitation Cézanne. The technical skill was breathtaking. Marcus truly was talented, but he'd chosen to use that talent for deception rather than creating something authentic of his own. I photographed everything with my phone, careful to document each painting from multiple angles. Then I found the notebooks, pages and pages of Marcus's handwriting, detailing the forgery process, listing buyers, recording sales figures. It was a complete confession, written in his own hand. I photographed those too, working quickly and quietly, my heart pounding every time the old house creaked. In the bottom drawer of his desk, I found something that made me freeze: legal documents. Divorce papers, already drawn up and signed. The settlement he'd drafted gave me almost nothing, claiming all our assets were his alone. There was also a psychiatric evaluation, fake, I assumed, suggesting I was mentally unstable. He'd been planning this for over a year, planning to leave me penniless and possibly have me declared incompetent so I couldn't fight back. The rage that filled me was pure and focused. Marcus had underestimated me completely. He thought I was the simple, supportive wife, content to live in his shadow. He was about to learn how wrong he was. Victoria's unexpected visit. The next afternoon, while Marcus was out, my doorbell rang. I opened it to find Victoria Ashford standing on my doorstep, looking decidedly less polished than she had at the gallery. Her makeup was smudged, and her hands were shaking. "We need to talk," she said. I should have slammed the door in her face. Instead, curiosity won. I stepped aside and let her in. We sat in my living room, two women connected by the same man's betrayal. Victoria looked around at the space I'd carefully decorated, the home I'd made. "I'm not sleeping with your husband," she said abruptly. I raised an eyebrow. The messages suggested otherwise. "Those messages were coded," she said. "Everything in this business has to be coded. The love we talked about was money. The being together was about our business partnership. Elena, I'm gay. I have a wife. Marcus knows this. He's never been interested in me romantically." I processed this information slowly. So the betrayal wasn't an affair. "No," Victoria said. "It's much worse than that. Marcus has been stealing from me, from his buyers, and from you. I figured it out 2 days ago. He's planning to disappear with everything. And he's set it up so I'll take the fall for the forgery operation. Why are you telling me this?" Victoria met my eyes. "Because I think we can help each other. I know you've been investigating. Julian Foster contacted me yesterday. He told me you were involved." "Julian contacted you?" "He wants to bring Marcus down, and he thinks we should work together. 3 people whom Marcus betrayed, pooling our resources for revenge." Victoria leaned forward. "I have access to the gallery records, the buyer lists, proof of every sale. You have inside knowledge of Marcus's methods and access to his studio. Julian has connections to law enforcement and the art world. Together, we can destroy him." The unlikely alliance. For a long moment, I just looked at Victoria. This woman I'd thought was my rival, the other woman, was actually another one of Marcus's victims. We'd both been used, manipulated, betrayed by a man who saw people as tools to further his own ambitions. "What do you propose?" I asked. Victoria pulled out her phone. "Marcus is planning one final sale. A supposed Caravaggio that he's been working on for 6 months. The buyer is willing to pay $15 million. The sale is scheduled for next week. After that, Marcus plans to disappear." "How do you know?" "I found the plane tickets. One way to the Cayman Islands." "Only one ticket, Elena. He was never planning to take me with him, despite what our partnership agreement says. And he certainly wasn't planning to take you." The audacity of it stunned me. Marcus had been planning to abandon both of us, to leave us to face the legal consequences while he lived comfortably on stolen money. "What's your plan?" I asked. "We let the sale happen," Victoria said. "But we make sure Marcus doesn't get away with it. We document everything. We gather every piece of evidence. And when he thinks he's won, when he thinks he's gotten away with it all, we spring the trap. We make sure the buyer knows the painting is fake. We turn over all our evidence to the authorities, and we watch Marcus's world burn." I thought about it. The methodical, careful part of me wanted to be cautious. But the part of me that had been betrayed, stolen from, and nearly destroyed wanted revenge. "I'm in," I said. "But on one condition. I get to be there when it all comes crashing down. I want to see his face when he realizes what we've done." Victoria smiled, and for the first time, it was genuine. I wouldn't have it any other way. Gathering the evidence. Over the next 3 days, Victoria, Julian, and I worked together to build an airtight case against Marcus. It was strange, this alliance between 3 people who'd been brought together by betrayal. But it worked. Julian used his connections to verify the forgeries and identify every buyer who'd been defrauded. Victoria provided complete records from her gallery, including emails and financial transactions that proved the criminal conspiracy. I used my access to Marcus's studio to photograph and document every fake painting, every notebook, every piece of evidence. We met in secret, planning our strategy like generals preparing for battle. Julian's apartment became our war room, walls covered with documents and photographs, timelines and evidence. "Marcus is good," Julian admitted. "His forgeries are nearly perfect. If we hadn't been specifically looking for them, they might never have been discovered. But they're not perfect," I said, pointing to a photo of one of the fake paintings. "Look here, at the craquelure, the cracking pattern in the paint. Marcus artificially aged it, but the cracks don't match the underlying paint structure. A real painting aged naturally over centuries would show different stress patterns. Victoria looked at me with new respect. You really do know your stuff. I've spent my entire career studying authentic works, I said. I know what real looks like. Everything Marcus creates, no matter how skilled, has tells. Small inconsistencies that reveal the truth. Like the inconsistencies in his character, Victoria said quietly. We all fell silent for a moment, united in our understanding of who Marcus really was. The trap is set. By the end of the week, everything was ready. The fake Caravaggio was completed and authenticated by Victoria's gallery. The buyer, a wealthy Russian collector whom Julian assured us would be furious when he learned the truth, had wired the $15 million to an escrow account. The exchange was scheduled for Friday night at a private viewing room Marcus had rented at an upscale hotel. Marcus thought he was about to pull off his greatest con and disappear with everything he'd stolen. He had no idea that his wife, his business partner, and a determined investigator were about to pull off an even greater con of their own. Thursday night, Marcus came home excited and affectionate. Let's go out tomorrow night, he said. Really celebrate. Maybe that Italian place where I proposed. I looked at my husband, this stranger wearing a familiar face, and smiled. That sounds perfect. I love you, Elena, he said, and I heard the lie underneath the words. I know, I replied. And I did know. I knew exactly who he was and what he'd done. And tomorrow night, he would know that I knew. As I lay in bed that night, unable to sleep, I thought about the past 15 years. All the times I'd supported him, believed in him, sacrificed for him. All the times he'd looked me in the eye and lied. But I also thought about the future. About the woman I was becoming. The one who wouldn't be betrayed twice. Who wouldn't go quietly into obscurity. Tomorrow night, Marcus would learn that his biggest mistake wasn't the forgeries or the fraud. His biggest mistake was underestimating his wife. Friday morning arrived with clear skies and cold winter sunshine. I woke before Marcus and stood at our bedroom window, watching the city come to life below. Today was the day everything would change. Today, Marcus would learn that his carefully constructed lies had finally caught up with him. I heard him stirring behind me. Morning, beautiful, he said, his voice still rough with sleep. Big day today. Yes, I agreed, turning to face him. Very big. If he noticed anything different in my tone, he didn't show it. Marcus was too focused on his own plans, too confident in his ability to deceive everyone around him. That confidence would be his downfall. I went through my morning routine with deliberate calm. Shower, coffee, choosing the perfect outfit. I selected a black dress, elegant, powerful, appropriate for what was essentially a funeral. The funeral of my marriage and Marcus's career. My phone buzzed with a text from Victoria. Everything is in place. See you tonight. Another from Julian. The authorities have been briefed. They'll be waiting for my signal. I typed back simple responses to both. Ready. Marcus's final performance. Marcus spent the day in his studio, presumably putting finishing touches on the fake Caravaggio, or perhaps just savoring his anticipated victory. I could hear him humming upstairs, pleased with himself, oblivious to what was coming. Around noon, he came down for lunch. You seem calm today, he observed. Usually you get nervous before big events. I'm not nervous, I said truthfully. I feel very clear about everything. He smiled and kissed my forehead. That's my girl. Tonight's going to be special, Elena. The start of a whole new chapter. Yes, I agreed. A whole new chapter. After lunch, he returned to his studio. I took the opportunity to do one final check of my own preparations. I reviewed the evidence on my laptop, photographs, documents, financial records. Everything was backed up in multiple locations, sent to Julian, Victoria, and a lawyer I'd secretly hired. If something went wrong tonight, if Marcus somehow slipped away, the truth would still come out. But I was determined that wouldn't happen. I wanted to see his face when his world collapsed. I needed that moment of recognition, when he understood that I wasn't the fool he'd taken me for. Arriving at the hotel. The Exchange Hotel was one of the city's finest, all marble and crystal chandeliers and discreet wealth. The private viewing room Marcus had rented was on the top floor, a space normally used for high-stakes business negotiations and confidential meetings. Victoria had arranged for additional guests to be present, collectors who'd been defrauded by Marcus's forgeries, art world professionals who would witness his exposure, and, crucially, Detective Sarah Morrison from the Art Fraud Division of the police department, who would be there in plain clothes. Marcus and I arrived together at 7:30. He carried a large portfolio case containing the fake Caravaggio, handling it with the reverence usually reserved for genuine masterpieces. His excitement was palpable, a man about to complete his greatest achievement. "Are you ready for this?" he asked me in the elevator. "More than you know," I replied. The viewing room was stunning, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city lights. A small group of people were already present: the Russian buyer and his advisors, Victoria looking professional and composed, and several others I recognized from Julian's briefings. Mr. Castellano, the buyer, Dmitry Volkov, greeted Marcus with a firm handshake. "I've been looking forward to this meeting." The provenance Victoria showed me was very impressive. "The painting speaks for itself," Marcus said smoothly. "This Caravaggio has been hidden away for centuries. Its rediscovery is nothing short of miraculous." I watched him lie with such ease, such confidence. This was the man I'd married, the man I'd trusted with my life and my future. The betrayal burned fresh, fueling my determination. The painting revealed. Marcus carefully removed the painting from its case and placed it on the easel Victoria had prepared. Even I had to admit it was breathtaking. The dramatic use of light and shadow, the emotional intensity of the figures, the technical mastery. It looked like an authentic Caravaggio. But I knew better. I knew exactly where Marcus had sourced the old canvas, how he'd artificially aged the paint, the modern materials he'd disguised with clever techniques. Every brushstroke was a lie. "Magnificent," Volkov breathed, stepping closer to examine it. "The documentation is all in order," Victoria said, handing over a folder. "Authentication from 3 independent experts, provenance tracing back to a private collection in Milan, X-ray analysis, the works. All fake, of course." Victoria had created the documentation as part of the fraud, but now she would help expose it. The irony wasn't lost on me. Marcus was glowing with pride and anticipated wealth. $15 million. Enough to disappear, to start over somewhere without extradition treaties, to live comfortably while Victoria and I dealt with the consequences of his crimes. But that wasn't going to happen. The trap springs. "Before we proceed with the transfer," Julian said, stepping forward from where he'd been standing quietly by the window, "I think Mr. Volkov should know something about this painting." Marcus's head snapped toward Julian, recognition and alarm flickering across his face. "I'm sorry, who are you?" "Julian Foster. We met briefly at your anniversary exhibition." Julian smiled pleasantly. "I'm an art fraud investigator, Mr. Castellano, and I'm here to tell Mr. Volkov that the painting he's about to purchase is a fake." The room went silent. Marcus's face drained of color. "That's absurd. This painting has been authenticated by fraudulent experts," Julian interrupted. "The documentation is fabricated. The provenance is false. And the painting itself, while impressive, was created in your studio over the past 6 months, not by Caravaggio in the 17th century." Volkov turned to Marcus, his expression dangerous. "Is this true?" "Of course not," Marcus said quickly. "This is some kind of mistake, some competitor trying to sabotage." "It's not a mistake," I said, speaking for the first time. All eyes turned to me. "I can prove it." Marcus stared at me, confusion and dawning horror on his face. "Elena? What are you talking about?" I walked to the painting and pointed to the upper left corner. "This area here. Do you see the craquelure, the cracking in the paint? It doesn't match the composition underneath. A genuine old master would show cracking that corresponds to the paint layers. This is artificial aging, skillfully done, but not authentic." I pulled out my phone and displayed photos of Marcus's studio, his notebooks, his other forgeries. I have documentation of the entire process. Materials purchased, techniques used, even your notes on how to artificially age the canvas. Marcus's mask finally slipped. The charm, the confidence, it all fell away, revealing panic underneath. "You went through my studio? You had no right." "I had every right," I said coldly. "You're my husband. Or at least you were. Did you think I wouldn't notice the money disappearing from our accounts? The offshore transfers? The plane ticket to the Caymans? Victoria's testimony." Victoria stepped forward. "I should add my testimony here," Marcus and I have been running this forgery operation for 3 years. I authenticated the fakes and sold them through my gallery. But I recently discovered that Marcus was planning to steal all the proceeds and leave me to take the blame. She pulled out her own documentation, emails, financial records, recorded conversations. I have proof of every fraudulent sale, every fake authentication, every crime we committed together. And I'm willing to testify against him in exchange for cooperation with the authorities. Marcus looked from Victoria to me, his expression that of a trapped animal. You're working together? You and my wife. Turns out we both had good reason to want you destroyed, Victoria said simply. The buyers speak. Other people in the room began stepping forward, collectors whom I now recognized from Julian's investigation.